Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
The rain came down softly over London that night, hushing the streets into silence. The gas lamps shimmered on the wet cobblestones, their light fractured and golden in the puddles. Inside the dimly lit corridors of the Ministry of Magic, a man walked alone, his footsteps echoing faintly through the empty hall. His cloak trailed behind him, heavy with damp, its edges still glistening from the storm outside. It was Harry Potter. He was no longer the boy who had once stood trembling before Lord Voldemort. The years had changed him. There was still the scar upon his forehead, faint and pale now, but it throbbed from time to time, as if it remembered what he wished to forget. His hair was streaked faintly with silver, though his eyes, those familiar green eyes, were as bright as ever, alert and watchful. He reached his office, an Auror's den cluttered with case files and curious artifacts. A half-drained cup of tea sat cold on the desk. Harry rubbed his eyes, trying to ease the ache of too many sleepless nights. The ministry had been restless these past few weeks. Something dark was stirring again. At first it was whispers, rumors of former Death Eaters vanishing one by one. No trace, no struggle. Then odd magical disturbances began to appear. Corridors plunged into shadow without cause, mirrors that showed reflections of rooms not their own, and an unnatural chill that lingered where no draft should be. Tonight Harry had stayed late because of the latest report. 2 Aurors stationed near the ruins of Malfoy Manor had gone missing. The only thing found was a message scrawled across the cracked marble floor. The Master of Shadows rises. Harry read the words again on the report lying open before him. His fingers tightened around the parchment. A soft knock broke the silence. "Still here, mate?" came Ron's voice, warm but weary. He leaned in through the doorway, a sandwich in one hand, his Auror badge.
"Hermione says you'll wear yourself to dust if you keep this up." Harry looked up and managed a faint smile. "I'll stop when the shadows do." Ron frowned. "You've been saying that for 3 nights. He stepped inside, lowering his voice. "The lads down in records think this is just copycats, old Death Eater sympathizers stirring trouble. But the Ministry's wards are flickering again, just like before Voldemort came back." Harry's expression hardened. He didn't believe in coincidences. "It's not Death Eaters, it's something older." He opened a dusty book on his desk, a volume Hermione had found in the restricted section of Hogwarts library. The ink on its pages was faded, but the words still pulsed faintly with magic. The Umbramancers, the Order of Living Shadows. They were said to be wizards who could step between light and dark, merging with the shadows themselves. Most believed they were a myth, stories from the time before the founders, but now Harry wasn't so sure. "Blimey," Ron muttered, reading over his shoulder. "You think one of them's come back?" "Maybe not one," Harry said quietly. "Maybe someone who's learned how to be like them." Before Ron could reply, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then for a heartbeat, the room was plunged into darkness. A cold breath swept through the air, like someone unseen had brushed past them. The flame in the lamp wavered violently, though no wind followed. Harry's wand was in his hand in an instant.
Lumos. Light burst from the tip, spilling across the room. Nothing, no one, only the sound of rain outside, steady and soft. Then a whisper, so faint that Harry thought at first it was the wind. But it wasn't. The sound came from the corner of the room, from the shadow cast by his desk. A whisper that seemed to crawl across the floor. "Potter." The voice was thin, stretched, as though it came from very far away, or very deep below. Ron's sandwich hit the floor. "Tell me you heard that." His heart thudded in his chest. The whisper came again, this time colder, carrying words that made his blood run chill. "The veil is open." Before either of them could move, the light vanished completely. The darkness was alive, moving, breathing, folding over itself. Harry could see it twisting around the furniture, swallowing the walls. It wasn't the absence of light, it was something else. Ron. Harry's spell burst again. Lumos Maxima. Blinding light exploded through the office. The shadows recoiled with a shriek, vanishing like smoke, and then silence. The room was as it had been. The lamp flickered faintly back to life, but the air felt heavier now, thick with something unseen. Ron was pale. Merlin's beard, what was that? Harry turned slowly toward the window. Rain streaked down the glass, but behind his reflection, for just a moment, he thought he saw another. An outline standing beside him, cloaked in black, its eyes glowing faintly like embers in the dark. And then it was gone. He let out a long breath. "It's beginning," he whispered. That night, long after Ron had gone home, Harry remained at his desk. He stared at the message again. The Master of Shadows rises, and felt the weight of a truth he could no longer deny. The darkness had found a new master, and once again Harry Potter would have to face it, alone if he must. But somewhere deep in the blackness beyond the window, something was watching him, and it was smiling. The next morning broke gray and heavy over London. Clouds rolled like bruises across the sky, and the ministry's grand atrium shimmered with an unnatural chill that seemed to cling to everyone's robes. Wizards moved quickly through the corridors, muttering about the strange flickers of light, the failing wards, and the whisper of a shadow no one had seen, but all had felt. Harry stood before the minister's office, waiting to be summoned. The carved phoenix on the door. Inside, Hermione sat at the far end of the long table, parchment and ink scattered around her like feathers. Her hair was tied back in a hurried knot, and her eyes, though sharp as ever, carried the weariness of long nights spent chasing answers. Kingsley Shacklebolt stood beside her, his deep voice calm but grave. "Harry," Kingsley began, gesturing for him to sit, "we've confirmed the reports from Malfoy Manor. Our investigators found traces of highly advanced shadow-binding spells. Magic far older than any known dark charm." Hermione pushed a parchment toward him. "We cross-referenced it with the Hogwarts archives. There's only one recorded instance of this enchantment, before the founding of the school. It's tied to a group known as the Umbramancers." Harry nodded. "I've read the same. They could move through shadows, even bend them to their will." "Not only that," Hermione said, her voice tight. "They believed shadows were a bridge to the afterlife, a world that mirrors ours but feeds on fear and memory. They called it the Tenebrae Realm." Kingsley folded his arms. "And now someone's trying to open it." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Rain pattered softly against the tall windows, each droplet sounding like a ticking clock. "Do we know who?" Harry asked at last. Hermione hesitated. One name keeps coming up, Theodore Knott. Harry frowned. Knott? He was in Draco's year. Clever but quiet, never one for attention. Which makes him dangerous, Kingsley said. We've been tracking him since last year. He's gone deep underground, acquired relics through black market channels. Our last trace placed him near the ruins of Nocturne Alley. Hermione lowered her voice. And there's something else. The artifact he seeks, the Obsidian Veil, was thought destroyed after the fall of Gellert Grindelwald. It's said to be a gateway between worlds. If he's truly found it, then he can bring back what's meant to stay dead. A soft dread passed between them. Kingsley's deep voice broke the silence. You'll lead the investigation, Potter. But be cautious. This isn't a foe like the last. The shadows aren't bound by flesh and bone. Harry nodded. Understood. As he rose to leave, Hermione caught his arm. Harry, this kind of magic, it feeds on emotion, fear, guilt, grief. Promise me you'll be careful. He offered a faint smile. You sound like Mrs. Weasley. Then perhaps listen to me for once, she said, though her eyes softened. He gave her hand a reassuring squeeze before stepping into the corridor, the echo of their words following him like ghosts. Fear, guilt, grief. They had been his companions for years. He wondered, as he walked, if perhaps they had never truly left him. By nightfall, the rain had turned to mist, curling low along the Thames River. Harry apparated to the narrow alley behind Borgin and Burke's, its old sign creaking in the wind. Nocturne Alley had changed little over the years, its stones still slick with damp, its air heavy with the scent of old curses and secrets best left unspoken. Lumos, he murmured, the light of his wand flickering across the shop fronts. He wasn't alone. From the mist ahead came the faint shuffle of footsteps. Quick, uneven, Harry followed, moving deeper into the twisting lane until he reached the broken archway that led beneath the city. The tunnels beneath Nocturne Alley were as old as London itself. Long ago, smugglers had used them to store contraband. Later, dark wizards used them for rituals the Ministry had outlawed. Now only rats and shadows called them home. Harry descended cautiously, the light of his wand glimmering off damp stone. The air was colder here, almost still. And then he saw it. A sigil burned faintly on the far wall, an intricate design etched in black fire. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The shape was unmistakable, a circle surrounded by jagged runes, enclosing a single mark in its center, an eye carved into darkness itself. Suddenly, movement. From behind him, a voice whispered, "Curious, isn't it, Potter?" Harry spun, wand raised. A tall figure stood half hidden in the shadows. His robes were dark, his face pale and thin. The light of Harry's wand caught the sharp glint of spectacles. "Theodore Knott," Harry said quietly. Knott smiled faintly. "You always were quick to spot trouble." Harry's voice was steady. "The Ministry's been looking for you. You've been playing with magic you don't understand." "On the contrary," Knott said, stepping forward. "I understand it better than anyone alive. The shadows remember everything, Potter. They remember him." Harry's grip tightened on his wand. "Voldemort's gone. You're chasing ghosts." Knott's eyes gleamed. "Am I? Then why does his presence still cling to you? Why does your scar still ache when darkness stirs?" Harry froze. The faintest pulse of pain flared beneath his skin. Knott chuckled softly. "The veil between worlds is thin. I mean to open it, to bring order again to what he began. The Umbramancers failed because they lacked one thing, a true master of both worlds. He raised his hand. The air rippled like water, and from the walls around them, the shadows came alive. Shapes coalesced, arms, faces, forms, without substance but filled with terrible intent. Harry's wand blazed. Stupefy! The spell struck one of the shapes. It split apart, only to reform again. Nott's laughter echoed. You can't fight shadows with light alone, Potter. Maybe not, Harry said, eyes narrowing. But I can fight you. He flicked his wand sharply. Expelliarmus! The blast struck Nott's wand from his hand, sending it skidding across the floor. But before Harry could move, Nott whispered something in a language not meant for living tongues. The sigil on the wall flared bright. Then a wave of cold slammed into Harry, forcing him back. He glimpsed the impossible, a vast black space beyond the breach, filled with moving silhouettes, souls without shape, whispering in endless hunger. Nott's voice rang through the chaos. Behold, Potter, the Shadow Realm awakens! Harry tried to close the breach, shouting counterspells, but the magic resisted, wild and ancient. He could feel it pulling at him, trying to drag him in. And then, just as the shadows surged forward, Nott vanished into the rift, his laughter fading into the dark. The breach sealed with a thunderous crack, leaving only silence behind. Harry fell to one knee, gasping, the glow of his wand dimming. The sigil was gone, but the mark remained burned into the stone, smoking faintly like a wound that would not heal. He knew in that moment what the message had meant. The Master of Shadows rises, and Theodore Nott had just crossed into a world from which no one had ever returned. But Harry would have to follow. Dawn came pale and thin over the Thames River, washing the city in a cold, colorless light. Harry hadn't slept. He stood at the window of his flat, still in his ministry robes, watching the mist drift through the streets below. The air smelled faintly of rain and soot. On the table behind him, a small glass orb glowed softly. Hermione's doing. A communication charm linked directly to her office. It had been pulsing all morning. He finally turned from the window and touched the orb. It shimmered, and Hermione's voice filled the room, low but urgent. Harry, I've been analyzing the magic residue from the tunnels. It's as you feared, ancient, unstable, and unlike any dark charm we've ever cataloged. You said Nott opened a breach? He did, Harry replied grimly, and he crossed through it. Hermione's breath caught. Then he's gone into the Tenebrae realm. So it's real then. But there are fragments in old records, references to wizards who vanished trying to reach it. They called it the mirror below, a place where every fear has form, every regret a face. Harry's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. He means to master it. Yes, Hermione said softly. And if he learns to command those shadows, he could bind spirits, perhaps even call them into the living world. You mustn't face him alone, Harry. But he only smiled faintly. When have I ever listened to that advice? Before she could protest, the orb dimmed. He was already moving, wand in hand, cloak over his shoulder. He didn't know how to find the doorway again, not yet. But he knew where to start. The old manor stood like a scar on the countryside, its spires broken, its windows black. Malfoy Manor. For years it had been silent, left to crumble in the winds that swept across Wiltshire's fields. But the ministry had sealed it poorly, and Harry could feel at once that the darkness had returned. He crossed the iron gates, their serpentine carvings cold beneath his hand. The path wound through overgrown hedges and wilted trees until the house loomed ahead, its doors hanging open like a mouth waiting to swallow him whole. Inside, the air was stale with dust and decay. The portraits that once lined the walls had faded, their painted figures long fled. Harry raised his wand, the light spilling across the grand hall where he had once been dragged as a boy, a prisoner beneath Voldemort's reign. He tried not to remember. At the far end of the hall, beneath the cracked chandelier, something moved. "Who's there?" he called. No answer, only the slow, deliberate sound of footsteps on marble. Then a voice, smooth, uncertain, but unmistakable. "Potter?" Draco Malfoy stepped from the shadows, wand raised. His hair was shorter now, his expression weary but wary. "I thought I saw a light. What are you doing here?"
"Looking for what your family left behind?" Draco's eyes flicked around the room. "If you mean ghosts, there are plenty. The place hums with them. I come now and then to make sure it's still standing." "You felt it too then?" Harry asked. "The shadows?" Draco hesitated. "Yes, a few nights ago. The air changed, like the house remembered something terrible." Harry nodded. "Theodore Nott has found something buried in our history. He's opened a doorway into another realm, what the old texts call the Shadow World." Draco's face paled. "Nott?" He was obsessed with that nonsense at school, always muttering about the hidden masters of magic. I thought it was just his way of sounding clever. "Not nonsense anymore," Harry said. "He's crossed over. And whatever's on the other side, it's leaking through." Draco ran a hand through his hair, his breath visible in the sudden chill. "You think he's trying to bring him back, don't you?" Harry met his gaze. "I think he's trying to finish what Voldemort couldn't." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence of the old house pressed in on them. Then Draco exhaled, long and slow. "Then you'll need help." Harry looked at him sharply. "You'd come?" Draco gave a bitter smile. "You think I'd let another Dark Lord rise under my roof? I'm tired of ghosts, Potter." Together they searched the manor, tracing the residual magic that still clung to the walls. It led them deep below to the old dungeons where the Malfoys had once kept their prisoners. The torches flared to life as they entered, unbidden. The air shimmered faintly. A mirror stood at the end of the passage, tall, ornate, its frame of black metal carved with twisting runes. It was not there before. Harry felt it before he saw it. The cold pull of enchantment, the whisper of something vast pressing close behind the glass. Draco stepped forward. "That wasn't here last month." "No," Harry murmured. "He's left a gate behind him." For a moment, Harry saw only his reflection, but then it shifted. Behind his image, a second figure appeared, cloaked and faceless, its hand resting on his shoulder. Harry spun around. Nothing. When he looked back, the reflection had changed again. Now it showed a landscape of black stone and swirling mist, a world without light where shadows moved like living things. "The Tenebrae realm," Harry whispered. The runes along the frame began to glow. The pull grew stronger, like a tide dragging at his soul. Draco stepped between him and the mirror. "You can't go in there, Potter. You don't even know how to come back." Harry's jaw tightened. "Then I'll find a way." From the inside. "Madness." "Maybe," Harry said, "but if we don't stop him, the veil will open fully, and then it won't matter what world we stand in." Draco hesitated, then cursed under his breath. "Fine, but I'm not letting you get yourself killed alone." Harry almost smiled. "Just like old times." The mirror flared suddenly, light bursting from every rune. The air trembled with a low hum. Harry grasped Draco's arm. Ready? Not even slightly. The light swallowed them both. When the brightness faded, the cold struck like a blade. They stood on a barren plain of dark stone beneath a sky without stars. The air shimmered faintly, and everything seemed half-formed, solid one moment, vapor the next. Strange shapes drifted in the mist, silhouettes of people whispering softly, their voices tangled with grief. Draco shuddered. Merlin's ghost. Harry's wand burned faintly in his hand. Welcome to the Shadow Realm. Far ahead, through the mist, a fortress rose, tall and twisted, built of black crystal that pulsed like a heart. Its towers stretched toward the void, and from its highest spire, a faint green light gleamed. Not, Harry said quietly. He's there. They began to walk. Each step echoed strangely, as though the ground itself remembered the sound. Faces flickered in the mist, faces Harry knew, Sirius Dumbledore. Even his parents, pale and distant. Their eyes were filled with sorrow, their voices almost words. He reached toward them, but they dissolved like smoke. Draco's voice trembled. Potter, this place feeds on us, on memory. Harry nodded grimly. Then we can't let it take hold. As they pressed on, the fortress loomed nearer, and Harry felt the air grow thick with power. The shadows along the ground began to move, twisting toward them as though alive, and somewhere within that vast darkness, a voice spoke, low, amused, and far too familiar. Welcome, Harry Potter. The ground split open beneath their feet, and the shadows surged upward like a storm. Welcome to my kingdom. The shadows erupted like a sea turned to storm. Harry and Draco were thrown back, tumbling across the blackened plain as the earth itself seemed to roar. From the chasm below, dark tendrils rose, writhing and twisting, reaching toward them like hands of smoke. Each one shimmered faintly with the echo of a soul. Half-seen faces whispering with hollow voices. Protego, Harry shouted, casting his shield charm. Light burst forth from his wand, pushing the darkness back in a dome of brilliance. For a heartbeat, it worked, but the shadows pressed harder, their whispers growing louder, forming words that crawled beneath the skin. Potter, murderer, betrayer. The barrier flickered. Harry clenched his jaw, forcing more magic into it, but the effort tore through his strength like fire. Draco staggered to his side, wand trembling in his grip. Whatever this place is, it knows us. It's feeding on what we've done. Harry's voice was rough. And don't think, don't feel, just focus. They moved together, the old rhythm between them finding life again. Dueling partners now against something far. Harry cast light to hold the shadows at bay, while Draco conjured jets of silver flame that seared through the mist. Each spark burned with fragments of memory, moments of their past flashing through the darkness. A duel in a school corridor, a name cried out in rage. Forgiveness found years too late. The storm broke suddenly. The tendrils drew back, coiling toward the distance. And then, through the swirling mist, he appeared. Theodore not, but he was changed. His robes fluttered like smoke, his eyes hollow yet burning with a light that was not his own. Shadows clung to him, moving as if alive, bending to his will. When he spoke, his voice was no longer entirely human. You shouldn't have followed me, Potter. Harry rose slowly, wand ready. You opened the veil. You've brought this upon both worlds. Not smiled faintly. Brought? No, restored. The world of light is weak, ruled by fear of the dark. But here lies true power. The shadows remember every soul, every sorrow, every secret, and I have mastered them." "You've enslaved them," Harry said coldly. "Enslaved?" Nott tilted his head. "No, Potter, I've become them." He lifted his hand. The ground trembled. Around them the air thickened, and from the mist rose forms. Spectral, towering shapes that shimmered like black glass. Their faces were twisted with anguish, their eyes burning red. "The dead serve willingly," Nott said softly. "They hunger for meaning, and I give it to them. Even he calls from beyond, waiting to walk once more beneath your sun." Harry's scar burned faintly. He refused to show it. "Voldemort is gone. Forever." Nott's smile deepened. "Are you certain? Shadows remember more than flesh ever can. He lingers in every dark corner, every whisper of fear, even in you." Harry's wand flared. "Enough!" He sent a bolt of light soaring toward Nott, but the dark wizard moved like mist, dissolving, reforming behind him. Harry spun. Sparks burst. Where their spells collided, the sound like thunder echoing across the plain. Draco joined the fray, his curses swift and sharp. For a moment it seemed they might hold their ground. But Nott only laughed. "You fight shadows with light," he said, "but light dies when it's alone." He raised both hands and the sky above cracked. From the fissure poured a storm of darkness, raining like liquid night. Every drop that touched the ground formed a new figure. An army of shadows, advancing. Draco swore under his breath. "Brilliant, Potter. You've done it again. Less talking, more fighting." They moved together, spell after spell, tearing through the swarm. But for every shadow they banished, 2 more rose. Harry's magic was draining fast, each cast slower than the last. Then, through the chaos, he saw it. A faint glimmer at the edge of the battlefield, like a window of silver light trembling against the darkness. "The exit," he breathed. Nott followed his gaze and laughed softly. "There is no exit, Potter, only the veil. And once I pass through, I will bring the shadow realm with me. Every fear of mankind made flesh." Harry's mind raced. He remembered what Hermione had said, that the veil fed on emotion, that fear gave it strength, but courage might resist it. He turned to Draco. "We can't overpower him, but we can weaken him." "How, in Merlin's name?" "Don't let it take you. Don't give it fear." Draco looked at him like he'd gone mad, but nodded anyway. "You're really going to get us both killed?" Harry smiled grimly. "Probably." He turned back toward Nott, and with every ounce of will left in him, called forth his Patronus. "Expecto Patronum!" Light burst from his wand, a magnificent silver stag, charging across the blackened plain. It struck the shadows like dawn breaking after endless night. The army shrieked and withered beneath its glow. "No. That light does not belong here." "Then maybe," Harry said through gritted teeth, "it's time it did." The stag blazed brighter, its antlers catching the darkness, tearing it apart. Draco added his own spell, a serpent of silver fire winding through the storm. Together their light began to push the gloom back toward the fortress, but the effort was immense. Harry's strength faltered, his vision dimming. The stag flickered. Nott, seeing it weaken, seized his chance. He struck with a wave of pure shadow, a serpent of darkness that coiled around Harry, crushing the air from his lungs. The stag vanished with a burst of fading light. "Do you see, Potter?" Nott hissed. "Even your light bows before the dark." Harry gasped, struggling, his wand nearly torn from his hand. Through the haze he saw Draco, standing over him, his face pale, his wand trembling. "Malfoy," he croaked, "don't." But Draco had already stepped forward, shouting words Harry barely heard. His spell struck Not squarely in the chest. The impact threw both men apart, the air shattering with light and shadow entwined. When the echo faded, the battlefield was silent. The shadows had retreated, curling back into the mist. Harry rose unsteadily. Not lay at the base of the fortress steps, motionless, his body flickering between solid and smoke. "Is he—" Draco began. "No," Harry said, "not yet." Not's eyes opened. For a heartbeat they were clear, human again. His voice was faint. "You don't understand. The veil, it's already open." The ground beneath them trembled. From the fortress spire, a beam of dark light shot upward, piercing the endless void above. The world seemed to twist, as though reality itself were being torn apart. Draco shouted, "What's happening?" Harry turned toward the light. "He's done it. The veil's merging with our world." He raised his wand, forcing himself upright despite the pull of exhaustion. "Now!" The two men faced the rising storm together, their wands blazing in unison, light and fire against the devouring dark. The fortress shook, its walls cracking, its spires falling inward. The last thing Harry heard was the roar of breaking stone and the whisper of voices fading into silence. Then the light consumed everything. When it cleared, he was no longer standing. He was falling through endless black, and somewhere above, the world of the living was already slipping away. The fall seemed endless. Harry tumbled through the void, light and darkness whirling together like smoke in a storm. There was no air, no sound, only the sensation of falling through a world that was not meant for the living. His hand still clutched his wand, though its light flickered weakly, a lone star lost in an ocean of shadow. Then, without warning, he struck solid ground. The impact drove the breath from his lungs. He rolled onto his back, gasping, staring up at a sky made of swirling mist. It was neither night nor day here, but something between, a twilight that stretched forever. He sat up slowly. The plane was gone. The fortress, the battlefield, all vanished. Around him lay a strange, silent forest, its trees tall and gray, their branches twisting like claws. The ground was soft beneath him, almost spongy, and faint lights floated in the air like drifting embers. Draco lay a few feet away, motionless. Harry crawled to him, shaking his shoulder. "Malfoy, wake up!" A groan escaped Draco's lips. He opened his eyes, dazed. "Where in Merlin's name are we now?" Harry glanced around. "I don't know, but it's still the Shadow Realm. Just deeper." Draco pushed himself upright, brushing dust from his robes. "Deeper? You make it sound like there's a bottom." "Maybe there is," Harry murmured, "and maybe that's where he's gone." They stood together in uneasy silence. The forest whispered faintly, though there was no wind. Every sound seemed to echo. Then from somewhere in the distance came a faint cry, a human voice, soft but desperate. Draco stiffened. "Did you hear that?" Harry nodded, already moving toward the sound. "Come on." The forest grew darker as they walked, the trees pressing close. Shadows moved between the trunks, darting just out of sight. Once, Harry thought he saw a familiar face, a flicker of red hair, a laugh he had not heard in years. But when he turned, there was nothing. They reached a clearing at last. In its center stood a small pond, black as glass. The voice came again, clearer now. It was a woman's voice. Harry stepped forward, heart pounding. The surface of the water shimmered, and a shape began to form. A pale figure rising from the depths. It was Lily Potter. Her face was just as he remembered, soft, kind, and filled with love.
Her eyes, green like his own, met his. "Harry," she whispered, her voice like the memory of wind through leaves. "Why have you come here?" He took a step closer, his breath catching. "Mom, I had to stop him. He's trying to merge this place with our world." She shook her head slowly. "You should not have followed him. This realm was never meant for the living." Draco stood frozen, his wand half raised. "Potter, that's not her." Harry ignored him. "Mom, please tell me how to close the veil." Her expression changed. For a moment, sorrow flickered across her face. Then her voice deepened, twisting into something colder. "There is no closing the veil," she said. "It closes you." The water erupted. The reflection lunged upward, no longer his mother, but a shape of darkness wearing her face. Its hands shot out, gripping Harry's wrist. The touch burned like ice. Draco shouted, "Expulso!" The spell struck the creature, shattering it into fragments of black mist. The pieces drifted upward and vanished into the trees. Harry fell to his knees, trembling. His skin still burned where it had touched him. "I told you," Draco hissed. "It's not her. It knows what you want to see." Harry stared into the dark water, breathing hard. "I know." He rose slowly, gripping his wand. "Let's keep moving. Whatever this place is, it's guarding something. We have to find it." They walked for what felt like hours. The trees thinned, giving way to open plains of black stone veined with faint silver light. In the distance they saw a tower rising, a spire of shadow that seemed to pierce the sky. Draco broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder why it's always you?" Harry glanced at him. "What?" "Every dark wizard, every cursed object, every world-ending disaster. It's always you in the middle of it. Don't you ever get tired?" Harry gave a small, humorless smile. "Every day?" Draco snorted softly. "You'd think the universe might give someone else a turn." They pressed on. The air grew colder as they approached the tower. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the ground, pulsing like veins of fire. Then they saw him. At the tower's base, Theodore Knott stood waiting. The shadows curled around him like a cloak, and above his head floated the obsidian veil, a disk of dark crystal spinning slowly in the air. Its surface shimmered with shapes, faces, and places from both worlds. Harry raised his wand. "It's over, Knott." Knott turned, and his smile was weary but triumphant. "You think so? Look around you, Potter. You stand in the heart of shadow. The veil listens to me now. I can bring back anyone, anything." "Then bring back yourself," Harry said, "because whatever you've become, it isn't you." For a moment, Knott's eyes softened. "Do you know what it's like to lose everything? My father died in Azkaban, my family name cursed. The ministry took everything. But here, I can rebuild it. I can rewrite the world itself." "You'll destroy it," Harry said. Knott's expression hardened. "You can't destroy what's already broken." He lifted his hand and the veil flared. A surge of magic burst outward. The world around them shimmered, tearing like fabric. Through the rift, Harry saw glimpses of the living world. London's skyline, the ministry, the faces of wizards frozen mid-step. "The veil is merging," Draco shouted. Harry struggled to his feet, his voice raw. "You can't control it, Knott. It'll consume both worlds." But Knott only laughed, the sound echoing through the void. "Then let them become one. Let the light and dark finally meet." The sky split open, and from the crack poured a torrent of souls, countless shapes screaming, reaching for the light. The tower shook, its base fracturing. Harry knew there was only one chance. He turned to Draco. "We can't stop it, but we can seal it from inside." Draco stared. "You mean trap ourselves?" Harry's voice was steady. "If that's what it takes." Draco hesitated only a moment. Then he nodded grimly. "You really are mad, Potter." Harry smiled faintly. "You're just realizing that now?" Together they raised their wands. Light burst from both, intertwining, silver and gold, fire and flame. The spell struck the veil, and the entire tower erupted in a roar of power. Not screamed, trying to shield himself, but the light tore through him, stripping away the shadows. His form flickered, then vanished into dust. The veil cracked, splintered, and imploded, drawing everything inward. Harry felt the pull again, the familiar sensation of falling. Draco shouted something, but his voice was lost to the wind. The last thing Harry saw was the tower collapsing, swallowed by light. Then all was silence. And in that silence, far above, the veil between worlds began, slowly, painfully, to close. Light and darkness swirled together like water and ink. Harry's body drifted between worlds, weightless, half-conscious. He could feel the magic tearing at him, pulling him one way then another. Then just as suddenly as it began, it was over. He landed hard upon something solid, stone, cold, and real. He could hear rain again. Not the spectral rain of the shadow realm, but the honest sound of droplets striking rock. He opened his eyes. He was lying at the edge of a cliff beneath a gray sky. The air smelled of sea salt and damp grass. Waves crashed below against black cliffs, sending mist high into the air. He was home. At least, he thought he was. "Potter," came a hoarse voice beside him. Harry turned. Draco Malfoy sat a few feet away, pale and bruised, his robes torn and scorched. He looked exhausted, but alive. "You made it," Harry breathed. Draco grimaced. "Barely. Remind me never to follow you into another cursed dimension." Harry gave a weak smile, but his heart was heavy. He turned toward the sea. The sky above was wrong, split by faint veins of shadow, pulsing like cracks in glass. The veil had not closed completely. Draco saw it too. "So that's it then? We sealed it halfway?" Harry shook his head. "No, it's still bleeding through. Nott's magic must have bound itself to our world before the veil collapsed." Draco rubbed his temples. "Wonderful, so we stopped him, but the damage remains." Harry rose slowly, his limbs aching. "Then we'll fix it." Draco laughed bitterly. "Of course we will, because when something impossible breaks, everyone just says call Potter. Would you rather I'd left you there? Don't tempt me." But there was no real malice in Draco's tone, only exhaustion. They made their way up the narrow path leading from the cliff to the countryside beyond. Twilight settled over the land, and through the mist Harry recognized the faint outlines of cottages in the distance, a small fishing village, quiet and remote. As they reached the first of the cottages, an old man appeared in the doorway, lantern in hand. He froze at the sight of them. Two wizards, ragged and wand-ready. "Who's there?" he called warily. Harry raised his hand. "Travelers," he said. "We're lost." The man squinted. Best come inside before the storm worsens." The cottage was warm and smelled of herbs. The man's wife poured them tea while Harry mended his cloak with a flick of his wand. The couple didn't ask questions. They knew magic when they saw it, but theirs was the wary respect of old villagers who had learned long ago not to pry into wizard affairs. When they were alone, Draco leaned toward Harry. "We can't stay here long. If the veil's cracks spread, the ministry will notice." "They'll notice soon enough," Harry said quietly. He set his cup down and reached into his pocket. His fingers brushed against something cool and sharp. He drew it out slowly. A shard of black crystal, the last fragment of the obsidian veil. Draco recoiled slightly. You brought that back? Harry nodded. It must have fused to me when the tower collapsed. Is what's keeping the veil open. Draco's eyes narrowed. Then destroy it. Harry looked down at the shard. Inside its surface, faint images moved, faces, whispers, memories that weren't his own. When he held it, he could feel the pull of the shadow realm calling softly to him. It's not that simple, he said. If I destroy it without sealing the connection, it could tear the veil open again. Draco muttered, Brilliant. We're carrying a world-ending curse in your pocket. Harry ignored him, staring into the shard. For a heartbeat, he saw his reflection and another standing behind it. His mother's face. Her lips moved silently as though trying to speak to him. He shut his eyes and slipped the shard back into his pocket. We'll take it to Hermione. She'll know what to do. 2 days later, they arrived in London. The journey had been quiet. Draco had chosen to vanish as soon as they reached the outskirts, his pride and discomfort with the wizarding world's gossip too strong to risk being seen at Harry's side. Harry didn't stop him. There was a strange sense of finality between them, an unspoken truce formed.
When Harry entered the ministry, every eye turned to him. Rumors had already spread, strange storms, flickering lights, whispers in mirrors. Hermione met him at the entrance, her face pale with worry. Harry, she said, gripping his arm. Where have you been? The whole ministry's in chaos. The sky's gone wrong. Kingsley thinks someone's trying to reopen the veil. He's right, Harry said quietly. But it's not someone. It's something. He placed the shard on her desk. The moment it touched the wood, the lamps in the room dimmed. Hermione drew back, eyes wide. Merlin's beard, she whispered. Is that the obsidian veil? Harry said, or what's left of it? Hermione circled the fragment carefully, her wand glowing blue as she murmured detection charms. It's still alive, she said after a moment. It's feeding on ambient magic, slowly mending itself. If it repairs completely, the Shadow Realm comes back, Harry finished. Hermione looked up at him. We'll need to destroy it properly this time. Not with spells, but with intent. Something that can sever it from emotion entirely? Harry frowned. What do you mean? Hermione hesitated. The veil is built on fear and memory. To destroy it, someone has to confront what they fear most and let it go completely. He went very still. You think it's me? I think it chose you, she said softly. You've always been tied to these kinds of magic. Love, death, shadow. You're the bridge between them. Harry stared at the shard, its surface reflecting his scarred face. Then I'll do it. Harry, he raised a hand. No more waiting. The longer it stays, the more it spreads. I'll end it tonight. That night, Harry stood alone in the ministry's hall of prophecy. The room stretched endlessly, filled with rows upon rows of glass spheres, glowing faintly in the dark. He placed the shard on the cold stone floor. The air trembled. Shadows flickered along the walls, whispering softly. He closed his eyes. The darkness deepened. The shard began to hum, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Then the whispers changed. They became voices, familiar ones. Sirius, Dumbledore, even his parents. Harry, they said together, you cannot destroy what is part of you. His breath caught. He could see them now. Ghostly figures, standing before him, their faces filled with sorrow. He shook his head. "You're not real." The voices wove around him, gentle and cruel all at once. "You brought the shadow with you when you lived. Every loss, every wound, it followed. The veil feeds because you remember." Harry fell to his knees. "Then take it," he whispered. "Take it all." Light flared from his wand, blinding and pure. The shard screamed, a sound like glass shattering underwater. The figures vanished, torn apart by the brilliance. When the light faded, the shard lay still. Its surface was dull and lifeless. Harry slumped forward, drained, the echoes of voices fading from his mind. For the first time in years, the scar on his forehead was silent. Hermione found him there hours later, kneeling in the dawn's first light. "Is it done?" she asked softly. Harry nodded. "It's over." She looked at the shard, now nothing more than black glass. "And the shadows?" He met her gaze, his eyes tired but calm. "Gone. Or sleeping. For now." Outside, the morning sun rose over London, washing the city in pale gold. The cracks in the sky had vanished. The world was whole again. But deep beneath the ministry, in a chamber no one entered, a single ripple of darkness stirred across the cold floor. Silent, watchful, patient. And though Harry Potter did not yet know it, the shadow had not died. It had merely learned his name. Weeks passed, and the wizarding world began to breathe again. The skies cleared, the strange chills faded, and the ministry restored its calm order. Though the shadow was gone, or so everyone believed, he often woke in the night drenched in cold sweat, the echo of whispering voices fading into silence as he stirred. His dreams were filled with flickers of the shadow realm, endless plains of black glass, faces half seen in mist, and one figure always waiting in the distance, its eyes gleaming like twin embers. Not was dead. Harry had seen him vanish into dust, yet the memory of that voice, the soft, knowing tone that had called him welcome to my kingdom, lingered like a curse. On the third sleepless night, he rose from bed and wandered to the window. Beyond the rooftops of London, the sky was clear, but the stars seemed dimmer than before. He sighed. "I know you're still out there," he murmured softly as though speaking to the dark. From the shadows at the edge of the room came a faint rustle, barely a breath. He froze. "Lumos," he whispered. Light bloomed at the tip of his wand, cutting through the gloom. The room was empty. The only movement came from the curtains swaying gently in the night breeze. Harry lowered his wand slowly. Perhaps he was simply tired. Perhaps the shadows had become part of him in ways he did not yet understand. By morning he had made his decision. He needed to know. The next day he traveled to Hogwarts Castle. The castle stood proud and familiar as ever, its towers gleaming in the autumn sun. Yet even here the air felt altered. The warmth of the fires in the great hall could not quite drive away the lingering chill. Professor Minerva McGonagall greeted him in her office, her expression a blend of sternness and concern. "Potter," she said, gesturing for him to sit, "you've chosen an interesting time for a visit. The students have been reporting strange dreams, dark corridors where none exist, and the castle wards have been flickering again." Harry frowned. "Dreams?" She nodded gravely. "Always the same." They say it sounds like a whisper they can almost understand, but never quite. Harry's stomach tightened. "It's spreading again." McGonagall's gaze sharpened. "You think this is your doing?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But if the veil's magic left any trace, Hogwarts would be the first to feel it. This place is bound to everything, light, dark, and in between. McGonagall studied him for a moment, then rose. "Then you had best speak with her," she said, motioning toward the window. "She's been waiting for you." Harry followed her gaze and saw, standing in the courtyard below, Luna Lovegood. Her hair shone like pale gold in the sun, her eyes distant as always, fixed on something no one else could see. "Hello, Harry," Luna said dreamily as he approached. "You've brought the cold with you." He smiled faintly. "So it seems." She tilted her head, studying him. "You've been somewhere that doesn't like to be remembered." He met her gaze. "How do you know?" "Because it's following you," she said simply. "The shadows cling to your magic. They're afraid you'll forget them." Harry swallowed. "Can they still hurt anyone?" "Not yet," she said, "but they're looking for a way back." They walked together along the lake's edge, the water gleaming silver under the autumn sky. The castle reflected faintly in its surface, except in one spot where the reflection was black, rippling like ink. Luna pointed. "There. Do you see it?" Harry nodded slowly. The darkness beneath the water pulsed faintly. "It's an echo," she continued softly. "A tear in the memory of the world. You didn't close it completely." "How do I fix it?" Luna smiled gently. "You can't, but you can quiet it. The veil feeds on what we hide. Secrets, regrets, the things we never forgive ourselves for. That's where it finds its voice." Harry stared into the dark reflection. He could almost see shapes moving within it, faces from his past, eyes that "I have lived my life fighting darkness," he said. "But this feels different. It's not out there anymore. It's here." Luna's expression softened. "Then perhaps the fight isn't with the shadows, Harry. Perhaps it's with the light you've never allowed yourself to see." She turned to leave, but paused, glancing back at him. "Be careful. Some doors are meant to stay closed, even the ones inside us." That night he couldn't sleep. The echo of Luna's words followed him like a haunting melody. He wandered through the empty corridors of Hogwarts, the portraits whispering softly as he passed. When he reached the entrance hall, he stopped. The great doors were slightly ajar, and a draft swept through cold and sharp. Beyond them, the moon shone pale over the lake, and there, at its edge, a figure stood, cloaked, still, waiting. Harry's pulse quickened. He stepped into the night wand ready. "Who's there?" The figure turned. It was not. It was himself, or rather a shadow of himself, dark, translucent, but unmistakably Harry Potter. The reflection smiled faintly. "You brought me here," it said. "You opened the veil. You never truly closed it." Harry raised his wand. "You're not real." "Then why do I feel every heartbeat you have?" the shadow asked softly. "Why do I remember every death you've seen?" It stepped closer, and Harry felt the air grow colder. "You can't destroy me," the shadow said. "I'm the part of you that kept fighting when you should have stopped. The fear that never died." "I don't need you," Harry said through clenched teeth. "Don't you?" The shadow's voice was almost kind. "Without me, you wouldn't have survived. You wouldn't have become their hero." Harry's wand trembled. "You're lying." "Then strike me down," it whispered, "if you can." He hesitated. The shadow smiled, and for a terrible moment, he saw truth in its words. Everything he had endured, every battle, every loss, had been born from the will to survive, no matter the cost. He lowered his wand. "No," he said quietly. "I won't destroy you, but I won't let you rule me either."
shadow blinked. "I accept you," Harry said. "You're part of me, but you're not my master." The reflection began to waver, its edges dissolving like mist. Its voice came faintly, fading with each word. "Then perhaps you truly are free." And then it was gone. Harry stood alone beneath the moonlight. The lake was calm again, its surface smooth and silver. The dark patch had vanished. In the days that followed, the strange dreams stopped. The castle grew warm once more, its fires bright, its students laughing in the halls. When Harry prepared to leave, McGonagall met him at the gates. "Whatever you did, it worked," she said. "Hogwarts feels lighter." He nodded. Maybe it was just time. As he walked down the path toward Hogsmeade, he glanced back once. The towers rose against the sky, proud and golden in the morning light. For the first time since the veil had opened, he felt peace. But somewhere deep beneath the castle, where the roots of magic ran old and tangled, a faint pulse echoed, like a heartbeat sleeping under stone. And the shadows, quiet and watchful, dreamed of the day they might rise again. Winter settled upon Britain, cold and silent. Snow fell over the streets of London, muffling the noise of carriages and footsteps, softening even the hard stone of the ministry. The year had turned, and with it, a sense of uneasy calm crept through the wizarding world. The storms were gone, the veil sealed, the echoes quiet. But Harry Potter knew better than to trust in silence. He walked the dim corridors of the Auror office, his cloak brushing the polished floor, the air thick with parchment dust, and the faint smell of burnt spell ink. The night shift had ended. He'd taken to staying late again, reviewing old cases, reading reports of disturbances, anything that might explain the feeling that something still waited in the dark. On his desk lay a map of magical Britain. Dozens of enchanted pins glowed faintly, marking sites of recent anomalies, faint traces of shadow magic, distorted reflections, people speaking in their sleep of voices whispering in unknown tongues. He rubbed his eyes, weary. Hermione had said the veil was closed. The readings proved it, but every instinct in him whispered otherwise. "Still at it, are you?" The voice startled him. He looked up to see Ron standing in the doorway, hair dusted with snow, a paper bag of pastries in hand. Harry smiled faintly. "Couldn't sleep." Ron dropped into the chair opposite him. "You haven't been able to sleep for weeks. Hermione says you're chasing ghosts again." "Maybe I am," Harry said quietly. Ron's eyes softened. "You did it, mate. You saved everyone. You don't have to keep looking for battles." But Harry only shook his head. "That's just it. The veil isn't a battle you win once. It's part of the world now. Part of me. It's only sleeping." Ron studied him for a long moment, then pushed the bag across the desk. "At least eat something before it wakes up again." Harry laughed softly, though there was little humor in it. He reached for a pastry, and for a moment all was ordinary, the two of them sharing breakfast in the quiet hum of the office, as they had so many times before. Then the lights flickered. Both froze. It was brief, a single pulse, as if the building itself had taken a shallow breath, but Harry felt it like a whisper in his bones. The lamps steadied again, but a faint chill lingered. Ron swallowed. "Please tell me that was just a power surge." "There's no electricity in the ministry," Harry said grimly. He rose, wand in hand, and crossed to the door. The corridor beyond was empty. The air shimmered faintly like heat on stone, and his breath misted in the cold. From far down the hall came a faint cry, a woman's voice. Help me? Ron's eyes widened. Did you hear? Harry was already moving. They followed the sound through the twisting corridors until they reached the old Department of Mysteries. The great doors stood ajar, the runes etched upon them glowing faintly blue. No one had entered this place since the battle that had claimed Sirius years ago. It was sealed by order of the minister himself, and yet the doors were open. Harry stepped through first, wand raised. The air inside was heavy with enchantment, the hum of ancient magic vibrating through the floor. The long circular hall spun slowly, its walls lined with identical doors. The whisper came again, closer this time. Harry. He froze. That voice, he knew it. Sirius? He breathed. Ron shook his head quickly. It's not him. You know it isn't. But the voice came once more, rich and familiar, filled with warmth and sorrow. You left me there. You never came back. Harry's chest ached. It's a trick, he told himself. It's not real. Still, he moved toward the sound. One of the doors had stopped spinning. Its handle glowed faintly. When he opened it, he saw the Hall of the Veil. The great stone arch still stood at its center, its tattered curtain hanging motionless. It had been repaired after the war, sealed with the strongest wards the ministry could weave, but now those wards flickered faintly, as if something beneath them pressed to break free. The whisper came again from behind the veil itself. Harry. He took a step forward, unable to stop himself. Ron grabbed his arm. Don't. Not again. I have to know, Harry said, his eyes locked on the archway. If it's calling, there's a reason. Or it's baiting you. But Harry had already crossed the threshold. He stood before the veil, the air cold as a grave. His scar burned faintly, not with pain, but with memory. Show yourself. The curtain stirred. From within the archway came a figure, faint as smoke. It was Sirius. His eyes were kind, his smile weary. Harry, he said softly, it's not over. Harry's breath caught. Sirius? How? The figure's form wavered. The veil was never meant to divide life and death. It was meant to balance them. When you broke it, you changed its nature. Now it hungers. Ron's voice was tight. Potter, step away. Harry's gaze remained locked on the apparition. Hungers for what? For memory, Sirius said. For the past. It feeds on the things you can't let go. Every time you remember, it grows stronger. The realization struck him like a spell. His dreams, the whispers, the flickering lights, they were not remnants of the shadow realm. They were the veil feeding through him. How do I stop it? He asked. Sirius smiled sadly. You can't. You can only give it what it wants. The image began to fade, drawn backward into the arch. Harry reached out, but Ron seized him, pulling him away just as the veil shuddered violently. The entire room trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The wards flared back to life, sealing the arch with a blinding light. The whispering stopped. The air grew still. Harry staggered, breathing hard. Ron's face was pale. What in Merlin's name was that? Harry stared at the now quiet veil. A warning. He turned toward the door. It's waking again. And this time, it's using me to do it. That night, Harry sat in his office once more, staring at the old Marauder's map spread before him. The ink shimmered softly, showing every moving soul within Hogwarts. He traced a finger along the familiar corridors, lost in thought. The veil had never been a wall. It had been a mirror, a reflection of everything lost and unhealed. He could no longer fight it with spells or light. If it fed on memory, on pain, then the answer lay not in battle. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a photograph one taken years ago before the wars, before the scars. Ron, Hermione, and himself, laughing in the courtyard, sunlight caught in their hair. He stared at it for a long time. Then, with a slow breath, he whispered, "Thank you." The photograph shimmered once and faded to white. For the first time in months, the air around him felt still. The shadows in the corners of the room receded, whispering softly, almost peacefully. He leaned back in his chair, eyes closing. Perhaps the veil would always be there somewhere in the world, or within him. But for now it slept, and for one brief, fragile moment, Harry Potter let himself sleep too. Yet far beneath the ministry, the ancient archway stirred, its curtain rippled without wind, and from the darkness beyond a voice whispered, not in fear but in delight, "He remembers." The snow melted into spring, crocuses rose from the thawing soil of the countryside, and the world brightened again. But Harry Potter's heart remained restless. He had hoped the stillness would last, that the whispering from the veil would fade into memory. For a time, it seemed it had. Then came the dreams. He saw a tower of black crystal rising from the sea. He heard voices chanting beneath the earth, an echo of an old name, the Master of Shadows. And always at the edge of every vision, he saw a single figure standing in mist. Himself. Harry woke each morning with the taste of cold ash on his tongue. When the summons came from the ministry, he already knew what it would say. Magical disturbances reported north of Inverness. Shadows moving independent of light. A child vanished near the ruins of Dunhallow. He packed before breakfast. The Scottish Highlands stretched before him, vast and wild beneath a slate sky. The ruins of Dunhallow Castle stood on a rocky hill above the loch, its towers long collapsed, its stone. It was not the first time Harry had been called to such a place. Dark magic liked the forgotten. He dismounted his broom at the edge of the ruins. The air was heavy with fog, and the loch lay still as glass. No sound of birds, no rustle of wind, only silence. As he moved through the crumbling archway, he felt it immediately, the faint thrum of magic underfoot like a pulse deep within the earth. Something here was alive. The great hall had been swallowed by moss, the ceiling long fallen, yet at its center stood something new, a circle carved into the stone floor filled with runes that glowed faintly blue. At its heart burned a single black flame. Harry raised his wand. Finite. The flame flickered but did not die. Then a voice spoke from the shadows behind him. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Harry turned sharply, wand at the ready. A tall man stepped into the light. His cloak was deep green, his hair the color of rusted iron, his eyes pale as fog. He carried no wand, yet the air around him pulsed with quiet power. "Who are you?" Harry demanded. The man smiled faintly. "A friend of those you sent beyond the veil." Harry's grip tightened. "The veil's closed. You can't reach them." "Closed?" the stranger said softly. "Perhaps, but not forgotten. And what is memory if not another kind of door?" Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "You're an umbromancer." The man inclined his head. "One of the last. My name is Corvinus Knott." Harry's stomach dropped. "Knott? Theodore was my son." For a moment neither spoke. The wind stirred at last, whispering through the ruins. Harry lowered his wand slightly. "He's gone. I tried to save him." Corvinus's gaze was cold. "You sealed him in darkness. You condemned him to wander where no soul was meant to walk. Tell me, Auror, how does it feel to know your mercy kills?" Harry said nothing. Corvinus stepped closer. "I've spent years studying the shadow arts my son began." He
He was right, you see. It is a passageway, a place where power sleeps. I intend to wake it. You'll destroy both worlds, Harry said. Corvinus smiled thinly. No, I will make them one. Before Harry could move, the man lifted his hand. The black flame at the circle's center flared high, its light spilling across the stones. The runes blazed to life. Harry shouted, "Protego!" The shield barely formed before the blast struck. Darkness surged outward, swallowing the room in shadow. When Harry opened his eyes, Corvinus was gone, and the flame had split into two. From each flicker rose a shape, human in outline but made of smoke and light. Their eyes glowed white. Harry took a step back. Inferi! No, they were faster, sharper. They moved like thought, silent and relentless. Harry cast Stupefy. The red bolt struck the first shape, but it absorbed the light, its form swelling. They feed on magic, Harry muttered under his breath. He switched tactics. Lumos Maxima! The chamber burst into blinding light. The creatures shrieked, retreating into the cracks of the walls, and the flame guttered to nothing. The silence that followed was deep and wrong. Harry moved to the runes, studying them. The pattern was old, older even than Hogwarts. He recognized some markings, the sigil of the veil, the symbol of union, and something newer, etched crudely over them all, the Master of Shadows. He knelt, touching the stone. It was cold as ice. He's trying to reopen it, he murmured. But why here? He felt the answer before he found it. The ground beneath him trembled faintly, like a heartbeat. The veil's echo pulsed here, deep underground. Dunhallow was built upon one of the ancient convergence points of magic, a place where the barriers between worlds were weakest. Corvinus Knott hadn't come to conjure power. He had come to awaken it. By the time Harry returned to the ministry, the wind had turned harsh. He found Hermione in her office, surrounded by scrolls and glowing diagrams. Where have you... He cut her off, placing the charred fragment of runestone upon her desk. He's back. Theodore's father. Hermione's face drained of color. Corvinus Knott? I thought he disappeared after the war. He didn't disappear. He's been studying the Umbramancer's art. He found a way to call to the veil through the convergence points. If he succeeds, the veil will reopen, Hermione finished softly. Harry nodded. And this time, it won't be bound by death. Hermione sank into her chair, staring at the fragment. The convergence points are ancient. There are only 7 in all of Britain, each one tied to a ley line. If he reaches all of them... He won't, Harry said. I'll stop him. She looked up sharply. You can't do this alone, Harry. He smiled faintly. I never do. But I'm the only one who's been through that world. If anyone can stop him, it's me. Hermione pressed a hand to his arm. Just promise me one thing. If you feel the veil stirring again, don't face it the way you did before. You can't keep carrying the shadows. He met her gaze, weary and steady. If I don't, they'll carry everyone else. That night, as he left the ministry, he paused on the steps overlooking the city. The air smelled of rain. Beyond the clouds, a sliver of moon shone faintly over the Thames. He thought of Corvinus Knott's words. The veil is a passageway where power sleeps. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps what Harry had done years ago had not sealed the darkness, but merely lulled it. As he watched the river's slow current, he saw his reflection, split and shifting as though another stood behind him. For a moment he thought he heard a whisper. 7 points, 7 doors, and the last will open for you. Harry's heart thudded. The voice was not Knott's, nor his own. It was the veil itself,
speaking through the night. He turned sharply, wand drawn, but the street was empty. Only the wind answered him, carrying with it the master of shadows would rise again. And this time it would wear a familiar face. Rain lashed against the windows of Grimold Place, the old house groaning under the weight of another London storm. Harry stood in the drawing room staring at the cold hearth, his reflection faint in the glass behind him. The whisper from the night before would not leave his mind. 7 points, 7 doors, and the last will open for you. He turned as a log cracked in the fire. The flicker of light reminded him too much of shadow, of the way darkness seemed to pulse like a living thing when one stared too long. The house was emptier now. The laughter of the Weasleys, the sharp voice of Hermione scolding Ron, it had all faded to memory. Teddy came to visit sometimes, bright-eyed and curious, but Harry had long since learned not to bring children near the remnants of dark magic. The shadows remembered youth. They hungered for it. He moved to the writing desk where a spread of maps and letters awaited him. Hermione had worked through the night, charting the possible convergence points. 7 ancient sites, 7 doors between the worlds, one near the ruins of Stonehenge, another beneath Edinburgh Castle, and others lost in the wild reaches of the north. But it was the final mark that chilled him most, an unrecorded point, deep beneath Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the 7th door. A knock echoed through the hall. Harry's wand was in his hand before he'd even thought to draw it. When he opened the door, a gust of cold wind swept inside. Standing there, drenched and pale, was Draco Malfoy. Harry blinked in surprise. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have," Draco said, stepping inside. "Or something worse." He shook the rain from his cloak, his eyes dark with unease. "I had a visitor last night, a shadow that spoke with my father's voice. It told me to find you." Harry's jaw tightened. "They're moving again." Draco nodded. "I can feel it. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. Doors, black and shining, opening one by one." Harry led him to the table, motioning to the map. "Corvinus Knott is trying to activate the convergence points. He means to tear the veil open, but I think Hogwarts is his final key." Draco stared at the parchment. "Of course. That castle's older than Britain itself. Its foundations are carved into ley lines. If he reaches it, the veil won't just open," Harry finished. "It'll merge with the living world." For a moment, neither spoke. Thunder rolled overhead. Draco finally said, "Then we stop him before he reaches Hogwarts." Harry looked at him, a faint smile touching his lips. "You thought you were done following me into cursed places." "I am," Draco said dryly, "but I'm worse at pretending I don't care." They left the next morning before dawn. The Ministry had granted Harry temporary command of an Auror strike team, but he refused their help. This fight would not be won by numbers. Instead, he took only Draco and a handful of artifacts: Hermione's protection wards, Ron's enchanted compass, and the silver locket that had once belonged to his mother. Its warmth reminded him what he still fought for. Their first stop was the Isle of Mull, where one of the ancient convergence points lay hidden beneath a ruined monastery. The place was shrouded in mist, its stones black with age. As they approached, the runes on Harry's map began to glow faintly, reacting to the veil's presence. "Feels wrong," Draco muttered, wand ready. "It is wrong," Harry said. "Can you feel it? The air hums, like something beneath us is breathing." They descended the crumbling stairs into the crypt. At its center stood a stone altar carved with 7 circles. the mark of the Umbramancers. The largest circle was filled with black ash. Harry touched it gently. He's already been here. Before Draco could reply, figures stepped out. Half a dozen shapes cloaked in darkness, faces hidden behind silver masks. Their eyes glowed with the same pale fire Harry had seen in the creatures at Dunhallow. "The Umbral Order," Draco whispered, "followers of Naught." The leader raised his wand. "The master calls," he hissed. "The doors open for him alone." Harry's wand snapped upward. "Then let's make sure they stay closed." The battle was fierce and fast. The crypt filled with bursts of red and gold as curses met shields. The masked followers moved like shadows, their bodies twisting unnaturally as though half-anchored in the living world. Harry ducked a jet of green light, rolling behind the altar. He shouted, "Draco, now!" Malfoy's spell struck the ceiling, shattering the stone. Light cascaded down, the beams of dawn cutting through the gloom. The shadows screamed, retreating into the cracks of the walls. When the last echo faded, the crypt was silent once more. Draco leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Remind me again why I let you talk me into this? Because you knew I'd come alone if you didn't?" Draco smirked faintly. "Still a terrible reason." Harry examined the altar. The black ash had scattered, revealing a carved inscription beneath it. The words shimmered faintly in runic script. "When the seventh door opens, the shadow's heir shall rise." He traced the letters, his stomach sinking. "It's a prophecy." Draco frowned. "An heir? Not?" "No," Harry whispered. "Something older." By the time they reached the mainland, the storm had caught them again. They rode their brooms through sheets of rain, the wind howling across the cliffs. As they neared Hogwarts, Harry felt it, a deep vibration like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The castle loomed ahead, its towers lost in mist. The windows glowed faintly, but no light reached the grounds. Even from afar he could see it, a shimmer in the air above the great hall, faint but growing stronger. They landed near the gates. McGonagall was waiting, wand in hand. Her face was grim. "You were right," she said. "There's something in the castle, something old. The wards are failing." Harry's eyes lifted to the shimmer above the hall. "He's already here." Together they entered the grounds. The castle's corridors were darker than usual, the torches burning blue instead of gold. Students had been sent home days before, yet the faint sound of whispers echoed through the empty halls. They followed the pull of magic to the dungeons. There, beneath the castle's foundations, lay the Chamber of Shadows, a hidden hall built long before the founders, sealed for centuries. At its center stood Corvinus Knott. He turned as they entered, his eyes burning with unnatural light. "You've come at last," he said softly, "just as it was written." "Step away from the circle," Harry ordered. Corvinus smiled. "You don't understand, Potter. I am not the one opening the final door. You are." The ground trembled. The 7 circles carved into the floor began to glow, the air thick with magic. Harry felt a sharp pain in his chest, as though something deep within him responded to the call. Draco shouted, "Harry, stop! He's using you!" Corvinus spread his arms. "You were chosen the moment you crossed the veil. You bridged the worlds, Potter. You are the Shadow's heir." The words struck like a curse. The light around them erupted, shadows twisting into living forms. Harry fell to his knees, the darkness flooding through him. He could feel it, every memory, every grief, every loss, rising, alive and ravenous. Corvinus's voice echoed through the chamber. "Become what you were meant to be. The last thing Harry saw before the light consumed him was Draco's face, pale with horror as he shouted his name. Then there was only shadow. And in its heart, Harry Potter heard the veil whisper once more, this time not as an enemy, but as a promise. Welcome home. Darkness,
the kind that swallowed even thought. Harry floated through it, weightless, his body neither alive nor dead. He could not tell how long he'd been there. Moments, hours, or centuries. Time did not move here. It watched. The veil's voice surrounded him, whispering from every direction, you were born of shadow and light, child of both worlds. The bridge between what is and what was. He tried to speak, but his voice was nothing but air. Around him the darkness pulsed, shaping itself into familiar forms, faces of those he had loved and lost. Sirius, Dumbledore, his parents, even Cedric, all standing before him in pale, flickering light. You cannot stay, he whispered, but they did not answer. They only watched him, eyes filled with the calm sorrow of those who had accepted eternity. Then another shape formed behind them, taller, cloaked, its eyes twin embers in the dark. You see, the voice murmured, they are at peace, but you are not. Harry's heart quickened. Who are you? The figure stepped closer, and for the first time the shadows seemed to bend away from it, as if even the darkness bowed. I am what you left behind, it said. I am the veil's keeper, the part of you that remains when light fails. Harry raised his wand, though its glow was faint. You're not me. Not yet, the voice answered, but you could be. You opened the veil, Potter. You fed it with your memories, your grief, your victories. You made it remember itself. Harry's scar throbbed faintly. I closed it. The keeper's smile was thin and cruel. Did you? Or did you merely bring it home with you? The darkness shifted. Visions flared around them. Hogwarts burning, the ministry drowning in shadow, London swallowed by night. At the center of it all stood Harry himself, his eyes hollow, his hand raised like a king, commanding ghosts. He staggered back. No, that isn't real. It is what will be, the keeper said softly. The world is tired of light. It needs balance, the master of shadows reborn. Harry felt the words strike deep, echoing through every part of him. For a moment he felt the terrible weight of what the keeper offered, an end to pain, to loss, to endless fighting, the power to silence all suffering. He almost believed it. Then from somewhere far away, a voice pierced the darkness. Harry, wake up. Draco's voice, faint but real. The shadows wavered, the keeper's eyes narrowed. He calls you back to pain, back to a world that will never love you as it once did. Stay here, and you will never be alone again. Harry took a step back. No, I've been alone before, and I survived. He raised his wand. I won't be your heir. The keeper's expression hardened. Then you will be my enemy. The darkness surged. Shadows lunged toward him like serpents, their cold grasp closing around his arms, his throat. He could feel his strength fading, his magic unraveling. He closed his eyes. And in that instant he remembered Luna's words. The veil feeds on what you hide. He stopped fighting. He let the shadows come. Every fear, every wound, every loss. He let them pass through him. The darkness roared, but found no anchor. His memories were no longer chains. They were light. The keeper screamed. Its form flickered, torn apart by the very magic it had sought to command. You cannot destroy me, it howled. You are me.
Then I'll live with you, Harry said softly, but you'll never rule me. The darkness shattered like glass. He woke with a gasp, the taste of cold air filling his lungs. The world was spinning. He was lying on the floor of the Chamber of Shadows. The glowing runes had gone dark, their power spent. Draco knelt beside him, blood on his face, wand clutched tight. "Merlin, Potter," he breathed. "You were gone. I thought—" Harry sat up slowly, every muscle aching. "Corvinus?" Draco gestured to the far side of the chamber. The elder knot lay sprawled against the stone wall, lifeless. Harry's eyes fell upon the circle. The markings were still visible, but faint, like scars fading from old wounds. "It's over," Draco said quietly. Harry shook his head. "No, the veil's not gone. It's inside me now." Draco frowned. "You're not making sense." Harry met his gaze. "It needed a vessel. I became one when I crossed it the first time. I felt it. It knows me." Draco swallowed. "And what does that mean for the rest of us?" Harry looked toward the ceiling, where the faint shimmer of the veil's magic lingered like mist. "It means I can keep it sealed. As long as I live." Draco was silent for a long moment. "That's a heavy price." Harry smiled faintly. "It's one I've paid before." He rose unsteadily, retrieving his wand. The air in the chamber was growing warmer, the oppressive weight lifting. Outside, he could hear the wind shifting, carrying with it the scent of dawn. "Let's go home," he said. Hogwarts greeted them in silence. The mist had cleared, and light filtered through the high windows once more. McGonagall met them at the entrance to the great hall, her eyes wide with relief and sorrow when she saw the exhaustion etched into Harry's face. "It's done, then?" she asked. Harry nodded. "The convergence is broken. The veil is sealed." She studied him for a moment as though seeing something deeper. "And you, Potter?" "I'm still here," he said simply. Her eyes softened. "Then that will do." Days later, he stood alone by the lake. The water reflected the evening sky, calm and silver. The castle behind him hummed with quiet life again. Students returned to laughter and study. He took a slow breath, feeling the faint pulse beneath his ribs, the echo of the shadow that now slept within him. It no longer frightened him. It was part of him as much as his scar, his wand, his name. He crossed the veil, faced what lay beyond, and returned not as conqueror or savior, but as something simpler. He turned as footsteps approached. It was Hermione carrying a parchment. "They'll want a full report," she said softly. "Let them wait," Harry replied. She smiled faintly. "You've changed." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe I've just stopped fighting the parts of myself I can't destroy." They stood in silence, watching the sun sink beyond the forest. When at last Hermione left, Harry lingered, staring into the fading light. A whisper stirred across the water, not dark this time, but almost kind. "Thank you." He smiled. "You're welcome." And as night fell over Hogwarts, the last trace of the shadow within him grew still. But far below, in the forgotten depths of the Chamber of Shadows, the stones whispered faintly to one another. The runes glowed once, just once, like an ember refusing to die. Then darkness claimed them again. Summer came to Britain, warm and strange, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The magical world had returned to its rhythm. Students to Hogwarts, Aurors to their rounds, and the ministry to its endless shuffle of parchment and politics. Yet beneath it all, something unseen moved, faint as a heartbeat beneath the earth. Harry Potter could feel it. He hid it well enough, Behind a quiet smile, a steady voice, the habits of a man long used to pretending peace. But at night, when the world fell silent, he would wake to find the candles in his room flickering without wind, the edges of his shadow whispering softly against the wall. It never spoke words, not anymore, but he could feel it watching, waiting. He told no one, not Hermione, not Ron, not even Draco, who had returned to his manor and his solitude. This burden, Harry decided, was his alone. And yet, he was not the only one dreaming. All across Britain, witches and wizards began to report strange visions. Black fields beneath a starless sky, towers of glass that hummed with voices, and a figure walking between them, carrying both wand and flame. Others said it was the Chosen One reborn. Harry knew better. The veil had not died. It had changed. One morning, an owl came bearing a letter, sealed with violet wax, the mark of the Department of Mysteries. Mr. Potter, your presence is requested at once regarding a matter of considerable urgency. Harry sighed. He had known this summons would come. He arrived at the ministry within the hour, descending deep beneath the building into the black corridors where few dared to walk. The same doors stood there as before, still turning slowly upon their axis, whispering as they passed. In the central chamber he found Hermione waiting. She was not alone. Two unspeakables stood beside her, faces hidden behind dark hoods. "Harry," she said, and her voice was tight, "we found something." She gestured to a long stone table. Upon it lay a small sphere of glass, swirling with smoke. Inside, faint images flickered. Runes, light, and what looked like a human form. Harry frowned. "A prophecy?" Hermione nodded. "But not one of ours. It was discovered sealed inside the veil chamber. We think it formed after the convergence." Harry stepped closer. The sphere pulsed faintly at his touch. Within it, a voice began to speak, soft, echoing, ancient. "When the bearer of shadow walks the waking world, and the veil no longer dreams, then light shall turn inward, and the master shall awaken anew." The voice faded. Silence filled the hall. Hermione's eyes were wide. "It's about you, Harry. It has to be." Harry stared at the sphere. "No," he said quietly. "It's about what's inside me." That night he returned to Grimmauld Place. The house was colder than usual, the air thick with the scent of rain. He lit no lamps. The darkness suited him. He stood before the cracked mirror in the hall, the one that had once shown Sirius's face, and waited. Slowly his reflection began to change. The eyes in the glass darkened. The smile that wasn't his. "So," the reflection said softly, "you've heard the prophecy." Harry's hand tightened around his wand. "You're not real." "I am as real as you allow me to be," the shadow said. "You carry me, Potter. You are me. You think you ended the Master of Shadows, but you only gave him form." Harry's pulse quickened. "You're wrong. I ended him when I closed the veil." The shadow laughed. "Closed it? You are its door. You are its breath. Every time you dream, every time you remember, the veil stirs. It hungers still." Harry stepped forward. "What do you want?" "What I have always wanted," the voice whispered, "to be whole." The glass shuddered. Cracks spread like lightning across its surface. The reflection's hand pressed against the other side, the barrier thinning until Harry could feel the chill of it upon his skin. He raised his wand. "No further." The reflection's eyes gleamed. "If you destroy me, you destroy yourself." Harry hesitated, and in that moment of doubt, the mirror shattered. The shock wave knocked him backward. When he rose, the pieces lay scattered across the floor, glimmering faintly. Each shard reflected a different scene, a battlefield, a forest, a grave, and in all of them a single figure cloaked in shadow. He stared down at the fragments. "What are you showing me?" But the pieces gave no answer. By dawn, he had made his decision. He packed little, a cloak, his wand, and the locket he still carried for strength. He left Grimald Place behind and set out north once more, following the faint tremor of magic that only he could feel. It led him beyond the highlands, through mist and rain, to the cliffs of Orkney, where ancient standing stones rose from the earth like the ribs of a giant long dead. The runes upon them glowed faintly as he approached, their light cold and blue. He touched one, the world rippled. Suddenly, he was standing in a place that was not a place at all, a world between. Shadows stretched, and before him stood the veil, vast and terrible, its curtain moving like a living thing. "I knew you'd come," said a voice behind him. Corvinus not. But he was changed, his body half translucent, his form fading and reforming with every breath. He was neither dead nor living, caught between both. "I thought you were gone," Harry said. "I am," Not replied, "and yet not. The veil does not forget its servants. It promised me rebirth, and it kept that promise through you." Harry raised his wand. "If you think I'll help you," Not smiled faintly. "Help? You already have. The convergence was never meant to open the veil. It was meant to bind it to you. And when the bond is complete, the worlds will merge by your will alone." The ground trembled, the stones around them pulsed with light. "You can't stop it," Not said. "The prophecy cannot be undone." Harry's wand burned in his hand, light spilling from its tip. "Maybe not, but I can choose what it means." He thrust the wand toward the veil. The air exploded with light. Shadows screamed as they were drawn inward, the stones cracking, the world itself folding like parchment. The veil rippled violently, its curtain tearing down the center. Not lunged forward, shouting, "You'll destroy everything." "Maybe," Harry said, "but not in your name." The light engulfed them both. When Harry awoke, he lay upon grass, wet with dew. Above him stretched a dawn sky streaked with pink and gold. The stones were gone, the cliffs were gone. Only the sea remained, calm and endless. He sat up slowly. There was no sign of Corvinus Not, nor of the veil. The air was still. For the first time in years, he felt no whispering, no pull, no shadow, watching from the corners of his mind. It was over, or so he thought. As he stood, something glimmered in the wet grass, a shard of black glass no larger than his thumb. He picked it up, turning it in his fingers. Within its surface, faintly, a reflection smiled back at him, and then the shard melted into smoke, vanishing into the wind. Harry stared at the empty horizon. The sun rose higher, bright and warm, but to him it felt colder than ever. The veil was gone, but its echo lived on in him and in the world that had forgotten how easily light can cast its own shadow. The years that followed passed quietly, at least that was how the world saw it. To most, Harry Potter had become a figure of calm legend, the weary hero who had finally laid his wand to rest. He appeared at ministry gatherings when duty called, taught the occasional defense lesson at Hogwarts, and lived a life of quiet routine. But within him, something had changed forever. The echo of the veil still lived beneath his skin, a low hum that stirred when the night grew deep and silent. He had learned to live with it, as one learns to live beside a restless sea, never fully trusting calm waters. He no longer dreamed of war or loss. Instead, he dreamed of doors. Endless, silent doors, floating in darkness, each one waiting for him to open it. The world had forgotten the veil. He had not. One morning, as he walked through the bustling atrium of the ministry, a young witch ran up to him, a new auror, eyes bright with that eager reverence only the young could afford. "Mr. Potter," she said breathlessly, "sir, there's been an incident up north. Strange lights over the sea, and, well, the locals say they saw people walking on the water." Harry froze. "Where?" "Orkney," she said, "near the cliffs." He felt it then, a faint pulse beneath his ribs, steady and sure. The veil's heartbeat. He gave a short nod. "Get my cloak." The cliffs were gray and windswept when he arrived, the air thick with salt. The old stones that had once marked the convergence were gone, swallowed by time or magic, but the ground still hummed faintly underfoot. The sea rolled below, calm as glass. Harry stood for a long... The wind whistled through the heather, the waves struck the rock, and far beneath it all, a voice whispered, a voice he knew too well. "You cannot destroy what is part of you." He knelt, pressing a hand to the earth. "I didn't come to destroy you," he murmured. "I came to end this." From the mist ahead, a figure began to take shape, vague at first, then sharper. A man cloaked in black, his face pale and ageless. Corvinus Knott. Harry's hand went to his wand. "You should be dead." "I am," said Knott softly. "But so are you, in a way. Neither of us belongs wholly to the world anymore." The wind tore at Knott's cloak, revealing what lay beneath. No flesh, no bone, only shadow, given human form. "You tried to close the veil, Potter, but you never understood what it truly was." Harry's voice was steady. "Then tell me." "It is not death," Knott said. "It is memory, every sorrow, every hope, every life that has touched magic. It lives there. You sealed the door, yes, but the world cannot live without its reflection. It will open again, and when it does, it will choose a new master." Harry's eyes hardened. "Not while I breathe." Knott smiled faintly. "Then perhaps it's time you stopped." He raised his hands and the air split apart. Shadows poured from the cracks, swirling around them like a storm. The sea roared, the sky darkened, and once again Harry stood between two worlds. He drew his wand. Light burst from its tip, gold and fierce. "I've seen this before," he said, "and I've beaten it before." The shadows struck. He moved through them like a flame through smoke, his spells pure instinct. Bolts of light cut through the storm, each one driving the darkness back, but Knott's laughter echoed through the chaos. "Fool, you fight yourself?" The words hit like a blow. The shadows recoiled, and from their midst stepped another figure. Harry stared. It was him. Not the reflection from the mirror, not a phantom. This one breathed, moved, lived. They were black as the depths of the veil. "I told you," Knott said softly. "The veil needs a master. It made one." The shadow Harry lifted its wand. "You kept me locked away long enough." Their spells met in midair, light against shadow. The force hurled them both backward, the earth splitting under their feet. Harry struggled to rise, his breath ragged, every nerve aflame. The twins' voice was calm, almost pitying. "We are one. Stop fighting me." Harry forced himself upright. "You're wrong." "Am I? You gave me life the day you crossed the veil. Every time you chose darkness to save the light, I grew stronger. Every lie, every compromise, every act of mercy that cost another life, I am all of it." Harry's wand trembled, the words cut too close. But then he remembered Hermione's voice, gentle and unwavering. You can't fight what's inside you. You can only learn to live with it. He took a deep breath. Then live with me, he said, but I won't live by you. The shadow faltered. Harry lowered his wand, the storm raging around him. You want balance? Then take it. He stepped forward, pressing his hand against his twin's chest. The shadows surged, trying to resist, but Harry poured everything he had into that single touch. Every memory, every moment of love, loss, and light. The world went white. When the brightness faded, he stood alone. The wind was gentle again, the sea calm. The shadow was gone. At his feet lay Nott's cloak, empty. The man himself had vanished, finally claimed by the darkness he had worshipped. Harry looked to the horizon. The first light of dawn broke across the waves, painting the world in gold. He felt lighter than he had in years, yet older too, as if part of him had been carried away by the tide. Weeks later he returned to Hogwarts. The castle greeted him like an old friend, its towers gleaming in the sun. He found McGonagall in her office reading. You look tired, Potter. Not tired, he said quietly. Finished? She studied him for a long moment. Whatever you've done, I hope it will hold. It will, he said. The veil's still there. It always will be, but it won't hunger anymore. He turned to leave, then paused. Thank you for keeping this place safe. McGonagall's lips curved faintly. Hogwarts takes care of its own. He smiled. That it does. That night Harry stood once more beside the black lake. The stars shimmered above, reflected perfectly in the still water. He drew his wand and whispered, Lumos. The light was soft, almost tender. For a moment he simply watched it dance on the water's surface. Then he spoke quietly, to no one, and everyone at once. I'm still here. A faint breeze stirred, rippling the reflection. In that fleeting shimmer, he thought he saw other lights answering his. Small, distant, but countless. He lowered his wand. The glow faded, leaving only the starlight. The world was quiet again. But somewhere deep within the veil, in that endless place of memory and shadow, a voice whispered softly, not in malice, not in hunger, but in wonder. He chose light, and for the first time since the beginning, the veil itself began to dream.